In 1851 or 1852, James Hopper, the president of the Baltimore and Southern Steam Packet Company, commissioned the shipbuilder John A. Robb to build a side-wheel steamship. The ship was to be used not only for carrying cargo, but would also accommodate 100 passengers. Launched in 1853, the ship was christened the SS Tennessee. It was 210 feet in length and displaced 1,150 tons. The SS Tennessee was placed in service carrying passengers and a cargo capacity of 5,000 crates between Baltimore, Maryland, and Charleston, South Carolina. The ship served on this route profitably for some time before being sent on a transatlantic voyage to England and France. Upon returning from Europe, the ship was placed on a newly opened route between New York and Panama. The SS Tennessee also occasionally was used to transport gold prospectors to the California gold fields. Finally, the ship was placed on a route between New Orleans and Veracruz, Mexico. On this route, the ship would often carry large sums of gold and silver that had been mined in Mexico, along with immigrants to America. The ship was in port in New Orleans in the spring of 1861 when the Civil War began. Louisiana had one of the largest enslaved populations in the United States at the dawn of the Civil War. According to the 1860 U.S. Census, 47% of the state's population were enslaved people. For that reason, as well as the state's geographic location, it is little surprise that Louisiana decided to secede from the Federal Union on 26 January 1861 and announced that same day that it would become the sixth state to join the Confederacy. As soon as that decision was made, the Confederate government seized all of the ships in the port in New Orleans. The SS Tennessee was renamed the CSS Tennessee. While all of this was going on, Union President Abraham Lincoln ordered a blockade of the Confederate ports. Lincoln ordered that 3,500 miles of southern coast and 12 major ports, including Charleston, Mobile, and New Orleans, be sealed off. Because the Confederacy relied heavily on exports of its goods, this action would cripple the Southern economy. In response to this, the Confederacy chose high-speed, mostly modern steamships that could outrun Union Navy ships to use as blockade runners. These blockade runners would embark on moonless nights, evade Union ships, and transport Confederate goods to foreign ports. The CSS Tennessee was one of the ships chosen for this dangerous task. However, before she could set out on her first blockade run, the city of New Orleans and the ships in its port were captured by the Union. The ship's name was changed again, this time to the USS Tennessee. The Union installed guns on the Tennessee, and in 1864 she was one of the ships employed in the bombardment of Fort Morgan during the Battle of Mobile. It was during this naval battle that Admiral David Farragut uttered his famous line, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." Because of her success in that engagement, her name was changed once again. She would now be known as the USS Mobile. In October of 1864, the USS Mobile was seriously damaged in a hurricane off the coast near the Texas-Mexico border. She was towed north to New York for repairs. But by the time she arrived, the war was winding down, and the repairs were deemed to be more costly than her future value to the Union Navy. In March of 1865, the ship was sold at auction, repaired, and returned to civilian service under yet another new name. Her fifth, and what would prove to be her final name, was the SS Republic. Her new owners assigned her to carry passengers and cargo between New York and New Orleans. The SS Republic made 4 successful and apparently uneventful voyages on her new route. Because New Orleans was captured early in the Civil War, the city was not physically damaged like some southern cities were. But like all southern cities, there was an economic impact. During the war, gold and silver coinage was either used to buy provisions or was exported, and it was in very short supply by 1865. Due to this shortage, over $400,000 in silver and gold coins were loaded onto the SS Republic in New York on 18 October 1865, and she departed for New Orleans. By day 5 of her voyage, the heavily laden SS Republic had progressed to the waters off the coast of Georgia, where she encountered a hurricane. She was battered by waves. The crew was joined by passengers in trying to bail water out of the ship. The wind and waves grew more severe as the hours passed, and in spite of their desperate efforts, the ship continued to take on water. Passengers reported that dishes crashed and were broken. Tables were overthrown. And as the ship lurched back and forth, the 300 tons of coal in her bunkers created a frightening roar. Finally, water reached the ship's boiler and extinguished it. The ship was now stalled in the middle of a severe hurricane, being battered by 40-foot seas and taking on water. The crew, now realizing that the situation was hopeless, built a raft out of wood from the ship. Passengers were loaded into the ship's 4 lifeboats, and the crew escaped on the raft before the ship slipped beneath the waves. Keeping the lifeboats afloat in the storm was a challenge. Several of the people clinging to the raft were lost at sea, but the storm finally passed, and the survivors were left adrift at sea without food or water. While they attempted to row, many of them grew hopeless as the hours passed into days. After 2 days at sea, just as their hopes of rescue were evaporating, the passengers caught sight of a sailing ship. They yelled and waved bed sheets to attract its attention, and to their great relief, the sailing ship, named the Horace Beals, turned to rescue them. The survivors were transferred to a steamship 2 days later and were transported to Charleston, South Carolina. The wreck of the SS Republic faded from memory and was eventually forgotten until 1992, when a Tampa-based commercial salvage company named Odyssey Marine Exploration began to investigate the wreck. Using historical records and survivor accounts published in newspapers of the time, Odyssey laid out a target area to investigate using sonar and unmanned submarines. In August of 2003, their efforts proved successful, and the wreck of the SS Republic was located. Remotely operated robotic vehicles were used to carefully pick up coins and artifacts one at a time. After their recovery, the artifacts were conserved and transferred to several museums, including a museum in New Orleans where the SS Republic was once docked. Odyssey Marine Exploration estimated that about 1/3 of the coins have been recovered from the wreck. Many of these coins have been sold to collectors. The coin pictured here was one of those recovered from the Republic. It is a seated Liberty half-dollar that was minted at the U.S. Branch Mint in New Orleans in 1857 and has been certified as coming from the wreck by NGC. This coin is one of 818,000 minted in New Orleans that year. It remains in excellent condition considering that it was submerged in salt water from 1865 until 2003. However, it does show some of the damaging effects of saltwater submersion on silver coins. The coins recovered from the wreck serve as a poignant reminder of the SS Republic and those who sailed on her. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the like button. That way you'll be notified when more videos are released. Thank you for watching.